Chit Chat is sponsored by Fun Again Games, where everyone is welcome at our table, and your source for hard-to-find imports, liquidation games, new releases, and much more. Be sure to visit funagain.com to check it out. On episode 97 of Chit Chat, we're talking about horror stories, board game horror stories, and oh, do we have some doozies. But fear not. For every bad experience, we have so many more good ones. Welcome back to Chit Chat, everyone. This is episode 97.
97, 3 away.
3 away from the big 100. Today, we are going to be talking about board game horror stories.
Yikes.
Yeah, and this doesn't mean last time we played Horrified. This is like some of our worst memories related to board gaming. It may not necessarily mean the game itself. It very well may mean the people we were with.
Or the experience around it.
Or the experience in general. But that's what we're going to be talking about today on this episode 97. Before that, though, we have some things to do about the last episode. We have a winner from last episode. Last episode, we gave away Merchants of the Dark Road from Elf Creek Games. And the winner was Brian Kircher.
Congratulations, Brian.
Yes, Brian. Congratulations very much. Just email us at manversusmeeple@gmail.com. Let us know your information, and we'll get that shipped off to you. And this week, we are going to be giving away a copy of Watergate from Capstone Games.
Nice.
If you haven't played Watergate, you definitely want to comment, because it is one of the greatest two-player games in the last handful of years. So comment below anytime during this broadcast, or if you watch it afterwards, for your chance to win Watergate. So, board game horror stories. We're each going to share maybe one, maybe a little bit more. But for horror stories, oh, by the way, you didn't notice, well, you probably did notice, Ryan's not here. You did notice Emily's here. You did notice I'm here. But back by popular demand, we have Jeremy. Jeremy, how's it going?
Thank you. It's a go?
Yes.
I'm back on?
You're back on.
Oh, thanks. Oh, hey. How's it going?
Control Room Jeremy, as we call him here.
Thanks for having me on.
From MVM North. He's back. And side note, Ryan's not here. He traveled to the UK last week.
Traveled afar.
He traveled afar. And unconfirmed reports suggest that on his way back, he may have picked up COVID or something along those lines. Because he had to quarantine for a little bit before he came back. Or he just told me that because he wanted to stay in the UK.
It's a good excuse. He
may have just wanted to stay in the UK for a couple extra days. Either way, he's not here tonight. So it's just the three of us.
Yeah, filing out excuses.
Talking about horror stories. It's a good thing because all of our horror stories involve Ryan Schoon. No, I'm kidding.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
That's an inside joke, everyone. So who wants to go first about their board game horror story?
I can lead us off.
Yes,
so
please.
Just get it off my mind. I want to just put it out there, and so it's done in the world. So my horror story was back in college. And in college, we didn't play a lot of heavy Euros or longer games. I was very itching to play like meatier games with like a little bit longer play time. And I convinced a couple of my friends to play Risk, the Star Wars Clone Wars edition.
Whoa.
So it was like, I was like, yes, this is going to be a meaty game. Let's get it. And I was playing with my significant other at the time, my friend who really liked Star Wars. And so he was like, yeah, I'll play this. And then my roommate at the time, her name is Mandy, she was like, yeah, I'll play. And I was like, so we're playing in teams. I was like, Mandy, are you sure? Like, this is a really big game. And I knew she got distracted. She liked playing board games with us. We played pretty often, but like, she hadn't played something this heavy, and I was like, are you sure you're down for this? She's like, yeah. I was like, this is like hours-long commitment. She's like, I totally want to play. I was like, you're sure? And she's like, yes. So we start, we're doing all the setup, we're putting guys on the board. There's like a whole thing, right, with Risk, where you're just like putting people out, figuring out where things are going to go before you're even battling or doing anything. We're getting towards the end of that phase, and Mandy...
The end of setup.
The end of setup. And Mandy, and like, this has been like 30 minutes. Mandy's been like starting to tune out, starting to look at her phone, kind of went by her like computer, started doing homework, and I was like, Mandy, what do we do?
Oh boy.
To the point where she was finally, someone else came in the room and she was talking to them, and I was like, okay, Mandy, we're like really gonna start. And she's like, yeah, I decided I don't want to play.
Oh boy.
I was so upset because then we were like, well, what do we do? You can't really play it at 3, like, because it was supposed to be 2-on-2, and now it's gonna be 2-on-1, and it doesn't make any sense anymore. And we just had to scrap the game, and I was so upset because I had been looking so forward to it, and she committed to it, and then I was like, we just wasted like practically an hour just doing setup of a game where we didn't even get to play it.
So I have a big question. Everyone wants to know this. Are you and Mandy still on good terms?
We don't talk as often, but it's not because of that. We were still roommates for the next 3 years.
It was only the first domino. It was the first
I did not ask her to play
fall.
any like longer than 30-minute board games with me though. After that, I was I
guessing,
don't trust you.
I'm guessing based on your story, Mandy is not an MVM subscriber, so she's
No,
probably
I would
not
highly doubt it.
unsubscribing right now. But Mandy, if you are a subscriber by chance, then you've completely changed your tune on
You can
board
go
games.
ahead and put in the comments your side of the
Mandy.
story.
Yeah,
and say-
absolutely. And we'll have you on, and we will play Star Wars Risk: The Clone Wars. Actually,
Right.
I might back out of
Yeah.
that one, but it will be before we start.
Right.
Jeremy, do you have a horror story? I have several, but I've tried to pare it down to just one.
Well, yeah, I know. I feel like I've had those game nights, like crazy game nights, but like I just think about this one because of it was when I was early in the hobby, and a lot of that stuff was like a lot of games were being introduced to me, and because of this reviewer, I was actually a reviewer's house that I went to that I was really fond of, and they just happened to live that like 5 minutes away from me. It was pretty crazy, and yeah, he had me over. I started going over there, drinking merrily. We loved scotch. We was having a great time. And then one night I came to game night, and we used to like pick. You used to even pick the games. Like you could pick the games on a website, and then we would kind of do votes.
Wow, that's
And
an
then you would
organized
pick-
game.
Yeah,
night.
It was
for sure.
really cool. He had like this little site you would go to, and everybody would vote, and then you do like a pick two, and then this, and then it would whittle down, and it'd be like, hey, these are the games we're playing on game night. So then you had an idea of what it was. Well, that would have been awesome for me now because I would know what to pick, right? But back then I didn't know what to pick, so I was like walking in blind. I was like, ooh, this sounds interesting. What is BGG? So click on the link. I think that's how I discovered BGG because he had links or something like that. And so that just shows you how new I was. So I go over to game night. He's like, hey, go downstairs with me. I got this new game. I think it was new at the time. It was called Mombasa.
Oh boy.
So I was like, oh, cool. All right, let's try it. And he's got it laid out. And I'm like, we're playing. And I'm like, hey, bruh, like, y'all know what's up? Like with this theme? Do you understand what's going on in this game?
Right.
Yikes.
And everybody's just looking at me like, oh no, man, this game's cool. And I'm like, brother, like, this is not a cool theme for me at all. Like, not at all. I don't want to play this game. And it was crazy. It was weird. It was awkward, and they weren't expecting that from me.
Sure.
And I remember him looking at me, and he was like, well, it's abstracted. It's an abstract game. And I'm like, it's not an abstract game to me. And yeah, it was real weird. It was a weird tension. But we got through the game. And it's, like, I won't play the game again. I can't wait for this Sky Mines redesign. But, like, I was just like, that was the first time where a theme hit me. I didn't like it. And even if it was sort of abstract, it wasn't even abstract to me. I mean, what you're doing is what you're doing. And what's implied is implied to me.
It's a very specific theme.
Well, yeah. So that was not, if I remember this correctly, that was not the end of the night because we played something after that, and it was Roll for the Galaxy. And he's trying to explain this to me, and it has its fair share of icons and things that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And he's explaining because he's so confident in his teaching skills, but I think we were all kind of drunk. So he's like, da-da-da-da, like da-da-da, and you just do this, and you do that, and do that. All right, let's go. And I think half the people knew how to play anyway. And so it was like everybody was just kind of down with it, and I was like, I will try to play this game. And that was a disaster. I probably cheated about 50 times in that game because I didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't even want to play at that point. But it was just a bad game night. And I remember after that night, especially with just being the Mombasa part of it, I just was like, I don't want to go back there. But I did because he was such a good guy. And we always had fun. And he taught me a lot about board games. Shout out to who you are.
Yeah, we won't name names to protect
That's my
the
guy.
innocent.
But yeah, it's just so funny that I remember that moment so significantly. But yeah, it was the first time where I didn't connect with the theme and I didn't like the theme at all. Like I didn't like that feeling at all. And yeah, it was kind of a disaster that night.
You know, Jeremy, you weren't on last episode when we talked about board game comfort zones, but
No.
those examples both
Yeah.
are very, very good examples of board game comfort zones. And the latter one you said with Roll for the Galaxy is just like one Ryan mentioned,
Yeah.
where you're the person at the table who knows
hasn't
the
played
least
it.
about the game, and
Yeah.
the teach was really fast, and then on top of it, you had the Mombasa experience beforehand, so it kind of
Right.
just eroded the whole night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and knowing the person, I actually didn't expect them to like be like empathetic to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I didn't expect that. So that's fine, and that was fine because I know that going in. But the part of it, just like everybody was so in on it, so I was kind of like just stuck in there.
Yeah.
Like it was like we were playing at max player count, so it was like, all right, everybody can play. So it was like, okay, even if I don't understand, I'm gonna play. And and like I said, when half people know and everybody, it just kind of felt like, oh man, I got to force my way through this. And it seemed interesting, and I've never played that game again.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never played
So
it.
it's
I am
just like-
looking forward to that. Is it called Sky Mines?
So yeah, the new one is called Sky Mines.
This is a
And,
re-implementation.
re-implementation, and we were just saying this right before we came on camera. I'm thinking this could be a situation where it could be like Terra Mystica is to Gaia Project. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, Mombasa is to Sky Mines. So we'll see. Sometimes they improve on each other. Sometimes they're just an alternative, or how Mage Knight and Star Trek Frontiers, like whichever one you want there, which one's better. So I don't mind that. It gives people options, and I like when people have options to buy something, based on their theme. But also, I don't expect a designer just to reskin. I'm assuming there's
Sure.
some things they
For
looked at
sure.
and decided, hey, these work thematically and mechanically to improve a design has a lot of familiarity.
Yeah, I think
a lot of familiarity.
that's expected, I think, to come out
Yeah.
maybe even this year, if not probably
I'm
early
hoping-
next.
Hope and Essen.
Yeah, hoping it doesn't.
I'll
So,
be right there.
I have a brief horror story, and then I have a more relevant one to today. My brief one goes back years and years ago. I mean years ago. I was a kid. Like I was in 5th grade, maybe 6th grade.
Oh wow.
And my next door neighbor, and I'll protect the innocent by not sharing names. But my next door neighbor, who is my age, and his older brother, I went over there all the time to play games. In fact, his older brother is the one who introduced us to D&D. So we'd go over there, and he would DM, and the two of us would play. And it was barely,
fun.
it
Yeah.
was barely really Dungeons and Dragons, but it was.
Well, it sounds
we
like
ran
a-
through dungeons and killed things.
Cute.
But that's not the story. The story is the one time I went over there and we played Monopoly, of all games. And this time it was not only my friend and his older brother, but also their dad.
Okay.
And I remember one thing about their dad is he had a temper, at least compared to my dad. My dad has no temper. He's like the chillest human being on the planet. Not so much the case with this dad. And we were playing Monopoly, and the only thing I remember is my friend's older brother wanted to negotiate with the dad about some properties.
Okay.
The dad was just not doing it.
Oh no.
He wasn't even entertaining it, right?
Oh no.
And he wasn't being mean about it. He was just like,
He was
no.
just like, no, I'm not
No,
doing
I'm not going to do it. And I was this close to using names. I guess it's not a big deal, but and it went back and forth where he was just saying no. And then the dad started going, getting a little agitated, saying, just move on. Long story short, or a little longer, my friend's older brother ended up not flipping the table, but he took the edge of the board and just completely flipped the board. Like, I don't know if we always talk about flipping the table, right? That's kind of a common thing in board games, but no one's ever seen it, right?
Jeez.
I did.
Right.
And I think if it might have some impact on my taste for negotiation games today.
Or Monopoly.
Or Monopoly, for that matter. But that was one horror story. But the more relevant one that affected me personally more recently was a game called Spyfall.
Oh, I love Spyfall.
Jeremy, have you played? I assume you've played Spyfall.
No, I haven't actually. No, I haven't.
Oh.
But I know
It's
what
a
it
lot
is.
of
Yeah.
fun. You guys-
Well, you and I have something in common because we didn't end up playing Spyfall. We started to play one round
Okay.
of it, and I had the situation. So if you don't know Spyfall, and I'll try to explain it, but I'm going to have Emily explain it if I
explain
can't.
it too.
It's kind of like a game of chameleon where there's someone at the table who's trying to blend in by acting like they know stuff that everyone else knows, but it's all based on these locations, and everyone's given a card that has the imagery of a location,
Yeah,
right?
so like it's like police station,
Yeah.
right? And everybody gets a card that says police station, except David got a card that says spy. And he's trying to figure out where are we at, and everyone else is trying to figure out who's the spy. And the way we do it is we ask questions. So I'll ask David, like, if you went to this place, how long would you spend at this place?
Right.
And David's trying with his answer to convince us that he knows where we are, but also not tell the spy where we are.
Yeah, so it's a game about vagaries.
Yes.
You're, and it's a lot like those other games, like Chameleon or Werewords, where you're trying to answer questions to suggest you know, but not to give away so much that the spy figures it out.
Yes.
And if you're the spy, you don't want to ask questions or answer in ways that give you away.
Right.
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 And like many games like this, for a lot of people, sometimes it's a little hard to wrap your head around those concepts. In this one, two things that I will blame on other than myself, because I was being dense and I just wasn't getting it. But on top of it, the teach wasn't great. But more than anything, it was everyone else's reaction at the table, including, and I'm throwing her under the bus right now, my lovely wife, Elisha.
Oh, naming names.
Because, well, I have to name her, because that's what made it so upsetting, is because I was being dense and I couldn't figure out, and very quickly, most of the table, their reaction was kind of asking me what I didn't get about it in a way that suggested I was being a complete idiot and that I was dumb and I couldn't get it. And by the way, that doesn't help. At all.
No,
we
it
talked
doesn't
about
help.
that
Doesn't help.
last episode too, in terms of comfort zones.
Yeah.
But I felt dumb to begin with,
Sure.
and then I felt even completely
Yeah.
stupid when they reacted that way, including Alicia. So then my stupidity turned to anger,
Yeah.
and I didn't say this verbally, but I was like, "I'm done."
Let's just move on. Let's just move on.
Our time's up.
What's this attitude, Brad?
I don't have an attitude. I've shut down.
That's it. Enough for me.
I'm good. I'm
I'm
just
done.
telling everyone now we should stop playing because this is not going to be an enjoyable experience for
Yeah,
all of us because
yeah.
I'm not going to be able to contribute to an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
So I was that guy that was like, I can't. I tuned out. I was to my benefit. They were very quickly said, fine, we'll just play something else. But it was
David buzzkill Waybright.
I was the buzzkill, but
David the vibe killer.
I'll tell you this: it was the longest, most quiet ride home
Oh god.
from this
Oh my
house that we played it with
gosh.
me and Alicia. But
Thankfully, your marriage survived that game of Spyfall.
yeah, it was actually before we were married, so
Okay. Oh wow.
Really testing the waters here.
we don't hold
Testing the
stuff
waters there. It could have been shaky.
we don't hold stuff like that against each other for too long. But yeah, that was one of my memorable, most unpleasant experiences.
I feel like
playing
it's
a game.
hard to be playing with significant others sometimes. Like Brian and I have definitely had moments playing, especially playing Villainous, because it has the. Yeah, it can be pretty mean, right?
For
And
sure.
Yeah.
Brian and I are pretty notorious for like trying to convince the other players, since we've played it before, that you really need to be like hurting
Yeah.
the other one. So I'll be like, Brian's about to win. He'll be like, Emily's about to win. And we had this one time where we were playing with my mom, and she had never played before, and it was true. It was accurate that Brian was literally going to win on his next turn. You could see that. And I was like, you need to fate him. And he was like, well, Emily's very close to winning too. She fated him, and I won on the next turn. And we had a huge argument, not just about like, the fact that happened, but also I'd be interested to see what people say in the comments, whose side you think. But we were saying, do you have an obligation to kind of, for especially for first-time players or for people who like, because it was my mom, it was my family, to tell her like, I also could be about to win, right? Like I
Yeah.
An obligation?
right. Do I have to say to her like, hey, you should also be considering me an enemy because what I didn't do that. Instead, I was just like, Brian's about to win. Because to be fair, he was. But he was like, Emily's also about to win. But she just got so inundated with information that she was just like, she tuned us out.
How
after
do
a
I
while.
choose who to destroy?
As
Yeah.
long as Brian had the opportunity and the wherewithal
Yeah.
to also comment, like, oh, but if you do that, Emily's going to win.
But I think
Yeah.
it's fair that what he was saying was like, well, it's your mom, right? So she kind of trusts you more.
Sure.
So it's like, you know,
That went deep.
like,
Oh, to be a fly on that wall. I wish we had video recording of that. I think that would have been more
I will
dramatic than you breaking your arm.
So I have one more that I think is really I just thought about this, and it probably has to do with the last show because I wasn't invited to the last show. So I'm just gonna.
Was
leak
that
this
one of
out
your
there.
worst board game horror stories?
No, but I was at Gen Con 50, and this was my first con, like Gen Con, like
Oh,
ever.
was it?
And 16 or 17?
Yeah, 7. Oh, yeah, somewhere around there. 17.
Yeah. So I go there, and it wasn't my first Gen Con because Gen Con was here.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it had been years. So, I'm doing this poisonous darts tournament for Too Many Bones. It was like the small mini game you play in Too Many Bones. We were doing a tournament, and this guy, I was just running the tournament, and I'm thinking about this guy, his perspective, and they both messed up a rule, and they were playing in the championship.
oh,
And he lost because they had just remembered the rule at the end.
Oh.
And it came down to the last move, and they were going back and forth. And the guy was like, well, I don't want to die. I'm not taking my turn. And we were like, wait, no, you have to finish the game. He's like, I'm not finishing the game.
Oh, boy.
We didn't play it right. I want to play it again, set it up.
no.
So he takes it, and the way I remember, he did finish the game. He lost, and he just sat there.
Oh my God.
He's staring. And I mean, like, I could just see how red he was. And he was just staring. And then when somebody went to, like, say, hey, man, he smacked him away. And then I was like, oh, my God, right? So then I was like, all right, let me let him breathe. And then I said to the guy, I said, hey, man, like, hey, totally understand that you're not happy, da-da-da-da. And this guy, we ended up having like a 20-minute conversation. And he was just talking about, like, this is something I was looking forward to. I'm a Chip Theory fan, and I'm depressed and all this stuff. I'm here by myself, and it took me all this stuff. And he was like an introvert that he came to this big thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, what a you just realize how much some of these things mean to people. And I was
Right.
thinking, like, like game night. Game night means a lot to people. And they get to come out for one night, or it's the highlight of their week.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And, and like for him, that was just, that just cracked it to the core, and I just thought about that. That was like probably a horrible moment for that guy. But like we ended up talking about mental illness and all this stuff. And
that's how
it ended up,
that's how you met Ryan Schoon?
Stop.
and that's actually, yeah, and his name is Ryan Scoot. Yeah. And we hugged, and I was like, whoa, 3 years later, here he is. I know you. And he like winked at me. But yeah, it was just crazy. I was just thinking, it made me think of this while you guys were talking about that guy. And we had a moment, and that was one of my first moments at a Gen Con.
Wow.
That actually is a good story.
Yeah, it's nice that you got to turn
Yeah.
something good.
So speaking of good stories and non-horror stories as it relates to gaming, we have been playing some games that we've been having some fun with. Jeremy, did you have a big game day recently?
Jeremy Kahn.
I had a game day with about 7 people or so, and they were kind of coming in and out of the house periodically through the day. But we started the day with the game. We wanted to start early because we knew it was going to be long. We had no idea it was going to be that long. We played a 5-player game of Legacies, which is a game by Brooks Sun Gaming, I believe. Name is Jason Brooks, so it's got to be Brooks' son, something like that, right? So it's like 1 to 6 player game, and you are playing out the legacies of these people over time. So it's like 6 rounds. You are playing these 3 kind of stages, centuries, and you are basically you're doing a whole bunch of stuff. You're trying to control markets. You're trying to build relationships with different people across the board. You're investing in certain things. There's all kinds of stuff that you're doing, but what you're trying to do is pass on money within your foundation and kind of carry it along as you get more successors to kind of pass along each round.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting game. It is super long. It's one of those Euros that I would say, if you want a Euro that's not what I call Euro the Euro game, ones that just seem like they're the same kind of rinse and repeat, just different things. Like if you don't want farming, or you don't want just trading, this has a lot of stuff in it. It's got some 18xx stuff going on market-wise, which is kind of cool, but it's lighter. Kind of like a Mini Express lighter, if you know what Mini Express. And it's just got some really cool stuff, especially with that relationship track, because there's actually like people that you want to be friends with, and they will kind of help you progress, and you don't have to pay as much for them. And then there's people who you don't like, but you kind of need them a little bit. And then you also have to make your inventions that happen, like that are kind of in your time span, so that you have different inventions that come during your time, and you can build those for money, or you can build other people's for the fame points.
Oh.
So there's like kind of even an interaction built into the game regardless. And there's 2 different versions of you. There's like kind of like a hands-off version, and then there's like a picky version, and you can actually choose between which one you want to be. So even then you can add even more interaction, but the game has this natural kind of back and forth to it that you kind of have to react to. Very interesting game. Very, very interesting game. I will say that it won't play the same every time, which is cool. And the theme is just, it hits, and it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel samey. And you have to decide, I think it'll take a couple plays to kind of slow it, to get it where it needs to be. But yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. Your first game's going to be very long, but it's definitely worth the time. I felt like it was worth the time. We played a couple other games. We played Majesty for the Realm, and we played Pioneer Days, games that I'm working on for our top 50 kind of coming up. So we're playing. What I'm doing now, since I'm not really doing videos, is I'm playing these games that are back behind me. Not the ones that you see in front. Those are all the new hotness. But behind those are the games that I love the most out of my collection. There's 4 shelves over here, trust me. So what I do is I'm going back through these games and trying to sprinkle them into my game nights just to see if they hold up, because some of these games, we play a lot of the new games, and we play a lot of the new games, and some of the games that I even got rid of, I'm like, I want them back just to see if I still love them, because we move too fast. So I'm going to slow it down a little bit, check out some of these older games I got back there, and Pioneer Days is just as fun as it always was, and Majesty from the Realm, beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful game.
Majesty is a really good game. I remember the first time that hit Gen Con, and I demoed it and realized it had it's from the designer of Splendor, right?
Yeah, Mark Andre. And you know what? It feels that way, and it's just so quick. I mean, somebody knew the rules, just like I did. I kind of knew the rules, and he knew the rules. We got it up and running, and we played. And there was a guy we were teaching. We still played it in under 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's
like we were just going bang, 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 and bang. And it's got high quality components.
Yeah.
So the money that you're holding, and everybody's doing stuff on off turns once you get going. There's interaction, but there's not devastating interaction because there's actually cards to counter that interaction and get your points back up. You can recover some of those. So it's like, it's such a good feedback game. And it's all happening in less than 30 minutes. That's exactly what I want in a board game. That's why I love that game.
Well,
that game is definitely holding up.
If you like that kind of game that takes that amount of time and has a lot of game to it, Emily and I have been playing a lot of games together lately. When Ryan was gone, Emily's come over a few days, broken arm and all, to get some games played. And we've played, and we'll talk about a few of these maybe in more depth, but we played Catherine. We played First in Flight, which we're going to have content up for all of these that I mentioned probably very soon. And then we also played Tiny Epic Vikings.
Yep.
And then Alicia and Emily and I played a full game of Wonderland's War.
That was a lot of fun.
All of those were fun. Wonderland's War is just as fun. I really, really enjoy that game. It was a kind of a learning game.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely
I
a
had to
learning game.
relearn it, and Emily and Alicia had never played it, so it did take a little longer than it probably would if we played it again.
Sure.
But the bag building intention of pulling things out and trying to increase your strength during a battle is just a lot of fun.
There's a
in
lot
that
of fun
game.
moments. There was like a moment where you and Alicia were battling it out for first place.
And we were very close to the end of the track.
And then there was a point where David busted, and it was like...
Oh, and it put you in
it
second
put me
place.
in second, and I was so far behind, but because he busted, he was out of it. And so I got the second place points by doing very little, just because David was trying so hard to get back at Alicia.
I
in that
did. I
one.
wanted to win that battle, and I lost it. We were
so
far
close. It was
down
like she'd go
the
far,
track,
then he'd go far.
and she had jumped out.
Like at like 4. It goes
She
to like
was
25.
way
and they were
back
like in the
there,
20s.
and we were in the high 20s, and boom, I went all the way back down to got 0. But we had fun playing that, although it was a late night that night.
It was a late night.
Playing. But today we just played Catherine, and Catherine is a new one coming from Capstone. Like I said, we're gonna have a video up of it pretty soon. This is best described. The mechanics, I've never really seen anything like the mechanics.
No, I don't know what else I would liken it to.
But I would say it's a very straightforward Euro. It feels almost like a classic Euro, like a Euro that came out a decade ago, but not
Euro the Euro game.
But yeah, kind of.
You're the
Euro the Euro game.
But the
yes.
really cool thing about this one is that it plays very fast. We just played it once, and I think on the box it says 30 minutes to 45 minutes, something like that. And I think after our first play, and our first play probably wasn't much
wasn't
more than
that long,
45
no.
minutes, two of us could knock it out in 30
so
minutes.
fast, yeah.
It's just 3 rounds, and you're playing cards to do a lot of Euro things. There's a track to go up. There's a map of places, and it's themed around Catherine the Great.
Yeah.
So it's like all of Russia, and you're like getting presents in all of these different cities.
Collecting resources.
So you're effectively playing people who are trying to kind of help guide Catherine the Great after an influencer through expansion on the map, through military, which kind of operates a little like Seven Wonders military. But the core mechanic was really cool because you play cards in an action row, and then you play the exact same cards out of your hand in an activation row underneath those other cards. But when you play in the activation row, none of the information, and believe me, there's a lot of information on the cards. In the activation row, it effectively just becomes a colored card, and it's one of 3 colors. So when you play a yellow card underneath a yellow card in your action row, that's when you do the action.
That's how you activate
That's
it.
how you activate those cards. And you're just doing this effectively 4 times each of the 3 sort of years.
The other cool
or
thing that it
decades.
had was, so you have a card limit, and you start at 3, or it can go up to maybe 7.
Yeah,
if you get
hand limit.
if you get up at the track. But when you get cards, you can get a lot of card draw, and if you're getting more cards than you can get in your hand limit, those just become victory points.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're just trying to draw a bunch of cards, not really to draw cards, but really to get victory points. And it was cool. It was an interesting aspect.
We both got a fair amount of points that way.
Yeah, just from drawing
Yeah,
cards.
I've never seen that in a game where you're really trying to flood your hand with cards so much so that you do hit your limit, and that, there was a time where I drew 7 cards and 4 of them were victory points because I could only take 3 at the time, which was kind of cool. I've never seen anything like that, but it is pretty thinky because as you play those multi-use cards, you look at all that information and you're like, oh, I want to activate this card.
Yeah.
And not only that, there's also information across the top of the card that is like ongoing stuff that you want to collect.
Yeah, you're like set collection stuff at the top, and then the bottom you have an action you're activating. Sometimes a bonus action that can be activated depending on what you have from the set collection. So it's like all working together, and you're trying to think of like, am I going to use this card in my activation row, or am I just going to use really the color from it to activate it later?
It gets a little, it's a lot to consider.
It's a lot to remember.
Especially, and this is what makes it so interesting, for a game that takes 30 to 45 minutes
Yeah,
and gives you that Euro experience, there's a lot of thinking to be done in that amount of time. So it is actually a very interesting space that this game enters in. There's not a lot of games like this. But
yeah, if you wanted to play a Euro, but you're like, but I don't have 2 hours, this is perfect.
yeah. If you have a bunch of Euro fans and you have a game night and like you said before we started recording, someone hasn't shown up yet.
And you're like, oh, they're like an hour away. They're getting food first.
You could get Catherine on the table and get it done.
Before they get
really
there.
quickly.
Ooh, I like that idea.
We don't want to talk about all the games we've been playing for content, but there is one other. Did you want to talk about First in Flight at all?
Oh, I could. Yeah.
Yeah,
First
please
in Flight was
do.
a lot of fun. So it's the one right behind us.
Yeah.
It's about you're in the age of flight, right?
Yeah.
So you're pilots and you're getting to do
The
test
Wright
flights.
brothers and whatnot.
It's from the same designers who did Search for Planet
Yeah.
X. It has this cool same mechanic where the person who's last right now is going to get to go again and keep going until whoever's last goes next. So you're going around the board taking different actions, and then you get to the point where you take a test flight. And when you're flying, it's again a push your luck mechanic, and you're taking from your deck, and you have different amounts that you're gliding through the air, right?
Literally gliding.
But you don't want to run into problems because you get 4 problems and you crash. And even if you crash, though, you can still get a pretty long flight and you might get a new record.
Yeah.
But if you can descend safely, you'll probably get further and get a better record. It's one of those where the points are not cumulative. Each time you're trying to set a new record to get a new high score. And at the end of the game, whoever has the highest score wins.
Yeah, it's
So-
basically you're just trying to continually get the test flight. And the cool thing I thought was there's a lot of mechanisms throughout the game that really, truly go so well with the theme. I mean, just the sheer flight, the sheer idea of a test flight back when, you're talking about the age of aviation, the birth of it, and combining that with Push Your Luck. I mean, that's exactly what they were doing, was pushing their luck by going up in the air.
Yeah.
And then as you uncover some of those problems, some of them are called design flaws, and those cause potential crashes. But when you uncover a design flaw by flipping it during a test flight, you put that on top of your deck face up so that between then and the next test flight, you might go to a repair action that allows you to work out that design flaw, and it mitigates it down to just a basic problem, and you get a little bonus from
You
it.
get a bonus from it.
A really cool game.
Yeah,
And it's a nice, simple, light game. I would say pretty accessible.
Oh, definitely
accessible.
Definitely very accessible. And the thing about it too is it's push your luck, so there's like this kind of like fun tension going on, but also at the same time there's tons of mitigation. So we have like tech and friends and skills, and we were finding some really cool ways to like combo them together, and to the point where you were feeling like I could definitely get the most out of my deck if I just combo these things in the right way. And so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you hear push your luck and you think it's a turnoff, do give it a chance, because all those things that she just talked about in terms of mitigating it, I don't know that I've ever seen another push your luck game that gave me the feeling of so much agency over what was happening in that push your luck scenario. So yeah, we'll have content up very soon on that.
Yeah, I'm ready for this. You said this is Genius Games, right?
Yeah, Artana, but yeah, so they're the same company.
Yeah. So I'm really ready, because last year Genotype by Genius Games, they did that was one of my top 10 games from Solo last year.
Yeah.
And almost made my top 10 of the games last year. So I'm really excited about what they're doing, kind of moving forward. But I like Artana stuff too, so I'm interested to see what's under that brand as well. So.
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
It's been a while since they made a game, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember that card. Yeah, it's been a while since they put out a game, so I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah.
Was there another one you wanted to
There
talk
was
about?
another one. So when we were at Buckeye Game Fest, I got recommended another one to play, and I played it this past week, which was Space Base.
Oh.
I told them I really liked Machi Koro, and they were like, you should try Space Base, which I had never played before. And so I played it on Tabletop Simulator, and it was a lot of fun. I liked it a lot. It was also nice, especially with the broken arm right now, getting to play it online. I have a little bit more agency, and people can do things a little bit more easily for me.
How are you with the left-handed mouse?
Not great yet,
No?
but we're getting there. We're getting there. It was nice because it was scripted, so a lot of things were just one click away.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
But yeah.
Yeah, Space Base, I've always loved it. It's been forever since I played it. And I mentioned to you, I have that Shy Pluto expansion that I'd never really went all the way through to introduce it. So maybe we'll have to get that out and try it.
I played. So when I say I played Bad Company, I just got rid. I already had gotten rid of Space Base, but I was like, once I got Bad Company, I was just, I don't need to play Space Base anymore.
Yeah, Bad
And
Company is that same sort.
Something about the things you can do on off turns, an actual somewhat thematical tie to it, and the silly artwork where you can put the cards
Yeah.
on
The
top
artwork
of
is
each other to
nice.
kind of.
Yeah.
It just all hit for me, and I was just like, I think I'm good. But Space Base. Really, really, really fun game.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think they're having another expansion for
Yep.
it, by the way.
I
So,
don't know any
you know,
details, but I do know there's another expansion coming out for it.
Exciting.
Yeah, so we'll see what's going on with that. I'm not putting the game to bed. It's just that I happen to love this game more, so I'm always willing to try it again because it's a really fun game.
Yeah, so those are the games we've been playing, none of which were horror stories. But we did have some horror stories. If you have any horror stories, definitely please
Yeah, let us know
share them
below.
below. Because that's like getting juicy gossip. I want to hear.
Yeah, give me some of
Spill
that.
the tea.
You can let it go.
Yeah.
They won't know.
Yeah.
They won't know.
Use
Okay?
people's names, don't use people's names, we don't care. But comment below with any of that, and again, you might get a chance to win a copy of Watergate by doing so. But again, as always, before the next time we see you, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then. Congratulations, you got to the end of one of our videos. Now, if you want more practice, just click on the video over here. It's another video. You might not have seen it yet, so click on it. If you don't want to do that, at least click on the subscription button below. That always helps us. And if you want notifications, please ring that bell.